Hey, what's up, guys? It's been a little while since I've talked about this. I thought it'd be nice to do a little video here for you to talk about what to do when you've received your new intake of youth players and things that you can do. Remember here, this is in the Manchester United save. We have interesting situation here. We're not really looking to build up for the future. What we're doing is we're trying to build up and win now and let the future sort of take care of itself. But I thought at the same time that it might be worth it to sort of look through and see if we can figure out I don't know what a good approach would be for somebody who is playing at a high level and maybe a longer term save that's interested in trying to build something up. So I was messing around a little bit, and I'll show you sort of what I do. So first of all, I already went through all of the new youth players that we had. There's some players who we did not offer a contract to. So let's look at David Barnes, for example. He's inconsistent, and so as a result, we're not going to give him a contract, right? I don't care that he's homegrown here. I don't care that he would meet XYZ requirement or anything like that. I really don't even care about the fact that we could potentially sign him and then sell him out later on and maybe even make a profit on him without playing him. The fact that he has inconsistency or that he's injury prone alone means that I'm not really going to touch him. Now, really, if I were doing this seriously, I would slow down a little bit, and I would even look at guys like Alan Carr, pay more attention to the personality, right? Fairly determined for a team like this is not going to be good enough because, as you know, when we look at our squad, we're filled with people who are model citizens, professionals, professional. Do we have any model professionals? I guess not. Perfectionists, those are the sort of players that we're looking for who have very, very high levels of professionalism, right? That's kind of like upping it up to like a different level, right? When you get this intake in, at least in FM23, I'm guessing it's probably the same in FM24. You can look in there and you can see right away, okay, what's his professionalism level? He's spirited. And it'll usually show you as well if he's consistent or not, and also if he's injury prone. You want to stay away from guys who are not consistent, right? Guys who are not consistent will frustrate you because they'll have, good games mixed in with really bad games, and there'll be no telling whether they'll show up or not. You also want to stay away from guys who are extremely injury prone because they tend to be injured. You don't want to have a whole bunch of guys in your team who are always hurt. So you want to watch out for that, and that's kind of what you want to stay away from. And especially professional players you want. In Football Manager, professionalism actually will rub off in others. Okay, so let's say you went through all this, you picked a couple players that you want to sign, and the rest you're like, well, forget about them, we'll just bin them off. What are you going to do next? As you know, I always like to mark players I'm not going to sign. This guy I changed my mind on. I give them the little flag. You go over to history, create note, and you can create the note. Here it is. Inconsistent is the note. Just says inconsistent. That way, when I see him again, I know, I don't have to scout this guy. I already know what's going on. The next thing to do is you want to look at what other teams have in terms of youth intake and try to poach players off of other teams. So here in the World Super League, it's pretty easy to do this, right? All we have to do is look at the other teams that are in the division with us, since we're in the championship group of the Premier League. And these are basically the teams that we're really competing with long term. I did City already, so let's go over to Liverpool. All we have to do is go to Liverpool and go to players and then all players. And we'll go up here and look at this. All these players in youth contracts, these are all the guys who just came in. Now, there might be a couple others who are listed here, but by and large, these are the guys you want to look at. We'll actually extend it out here, not just to players who are 16, but even to a couple of these guys who are 17. And we just go to report and fully scout player. And we'll let our scouts go over and take a look at them. Again, at this level, what I'm looking for are players who are getting like an A or A+ rating from the scouts, players who have personalities that indicate high professionalism, and players who are not inconsistent and not injury prone. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to go through all these players and see if we have guys like that. If they don't meet that criteria, there's probably somebody better out there, right? We go over to Barca, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to go here, we're going to look at all these players that are youth, and then I'll add on a couple other 16-year-olds as well, just in case. Part of the reason why I'll add a couple more on is just in case Barcelona decided, this player is really good, we're going to give him a big contract right away. We have guys like this guy, Lamine Yamal, who's already showing up as being worth quite a bit of money, and he's showing up as being pretty good for a 15-year-old. We'll look up his information. They're calling him a wonder kid already. And so there's a good chance that this guy's going to be really good. Look at his transfer status, 35 to 45 million or 43 million transfer value. So this is the sort of player who maybe we might want to consider going in for, but it depends. You'll be surprised at what the scouts will come up with. Sometimes the scouts will look at this guy and they'll say, no, this guy's really inconsistent, or he has a big problem with injuries, or he has sorry, he has a really, really bad negative personality. When you see stuff like that, I say abandon ship. Other people will tell you other things, but especially for me, like an ambitious personality or slack personality or one of these things, I don't care how much ability he has at this level. If he's likely to drag the rest of the team down with him, I'd rather go somewhere else. So the lesson you have to learn is that Football Manager will always create good players. They won't only create good players in certain countries, they'll create them all around the world, right? So keep that in mind as you look at different players and as you make decisions on who to buy and who not. Now, the other thing you have to realize is that you're not necessarily going to be able to get all these guys right away. I'll do another video on this, I think, in the future. The idea behind this is that you want to create a network, or not a network, you want to create a list of players that you're targeting on your short list. And so you don't want to just stick like every player on your short list. I used to do this. Everybody that we look at as a scout is going to go directly on the short list. That's a problem because then you have to keep going back through it and getting rid of the dead weight so that you don't have a whole bunch of like loser players sitting there. What you really want to do is you want to have a short list that's filled with players who you're actually interested in potentially signing. Because what will happen is you'll see these players come up and it will tell you like so-and-so's out of contract or whatever. If you already know that this guy's the guy that you want to sign, it's great because you'll just go and sign him. You don't need to then go say, oh, well, let's scout him again, make sure he's really good, blah, blah, blah. Just sign him if his contract's up. That's what you're looking for. The other thing you have to keep in mind is these players, especially the 15-year-olds, are going to reply to you, especially if they're out of country, and they're going to say, I don't think it's in my best interest to go to your team yet. That's one of those instances where you're going to have to wait for the future. You're going to have to be really, really patient. Why does Inter have so many players in youth conference? Contracts. The entire team is on youth contract. That's one of those situations where you're probably going to have to wait, maybe even a couple seasons, right? What I've noticed in FM23, and I think it's probably the same for FM24, is that when these guys hit about 18 years old, that's the time when they're going to be willing to like go abroad on an adventure and they'll go ahead and play for you and all this great stuff will happen and so on and so forth, right? Until you get to age 18, though, that's probably not going to happen. And so you have to be ready for the chance that this player is probably not going to want to go and play for you quite yet. You're going to need to be patient. Now, in a short save like this is probably not that important. I mean, we're not going to, go after a whole bunch of young players and like stock the team full of these young guys necessarily. There's not really that much of a reason to, other than maybe getting like the loan trick going, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The idea that we have in a short save like this is more that we want to fill the first team up with really good players, make the first team as good as possible, and then once we've done that, then we can think about the other teams, right? Now, another thing, I'll talk about this again probably in a different video in more depth, but the idea here is I want to get rid of most of these guys who have these flags by them. We want to sell those, hopefully just have them off the roster as soon as possible because I'm not going to do anything with them. That's why they're all on loan. The idea is that these players end up moving up to the B team. A lot of them are just trying to sell because we need money. And then when they're on the B team, then they are actually in a position where they theoretically could become first team players. And so you want to have a pipeline that goes from the under 19s or under 18s or whatever league it is you're in up to your next league, your B team, and then up to the senior squad. Ideally, players who are like 17 probably should leave this team. You want this team to be 15 and 16-year-olds. This team should be made up of players mostly up until they're about 18. And then if they're that good when they're 18, they should go onto your first team squad, like if they're going to have a chance to play in the future. If they don't have that chance, you leave them on this team until they're about 22 or 23, and then you start selling them off. And usually you can get a good amount of money for them, especially if you've had them out on loan for a while. That's the theory behind this and the theory behind the pipeline. And as is the case in everything, I mean, as is the case in sales, as is in the case in finding a job in the real world, as is the case in applying to college, as is the case in finding someone to marry, so it is in Football Manager. When you have that pipeline going, what you really need to do is you need to make sure that you get new stuff put in the pipeline as much as possible and that you're filtering through things, that you're processing through things. That's why you always want to scout. That's why you always want to make sure you're signing players. That's why you want to make sure that you at least put an effort out there to sign some of these 15-year-olds so you can get the pipeline working and you can make the process happen. Now, again, this Manchester United save is probably not the best example of this because the goal is completely completely different. We're at the top. We're trying to make a really strong team like right away, which is almost impossible because of the dynamic system in Football Manager. I mean, it just is not going to work. You're going to have problems, and we've had problems. However, if we do another save where we're building up from the bottom, or if you look at like Mars FC or your saves like that, what you'll notice is that the system actually does work. You end up getting a pipeline, and there are more and more players that can come through. And as you get more advanced and as you scout more players and find more good players around your in-game world, you'll find that it's really easy to get a monopoly on young talent. It's easy to get people out on loans all the time. And all of a sudden, you're not going to worry about, well, this one loan didn't work out, or we had to loan this guy out for no fee or whatever, because you'll have like 15 other guys that you're loaning out and you're making money off of. That's the way that you get it turned around. Anyway, there you go. A little bit of a tidbit here. Make sure that you do that even in the big save, because you never know when it'll come in handy. Talk to you again later. Bye.